Hey everyone! Today I want to talk about things you can do as a young professional to thrive in the workplace despite your age or even because of it. So the first thing, if you're a young professional looking to find your way in the workplace, is to not think of yourself as young. I see many people, and I've done this myself too, who sort of write on their LinkedIn bio, for example, that, hey, I'm a really good worker despite my young age. And that is really dangerous in my opinion, because first of all, you're telling everybody right off the bat that you're young, and then you're telling that despite this, where the presupposition is that young people typically aren't good, which is not true in my opinion. So the first thing is to not consider yourself a young professional, but to consider yourself a professional. The second thing that I want to discuss is to use proper clothes. So don't dress up in a hoodie and some joggers. Find yourself a good button-up shirt, good jeans. Find yourself a suit or a sports jacket, and really try to emphasize that you don't go to work without proper clothes. That way you'll be always looking professional and you'll find a lot more people taking you more seriously. At least that's what happened to me. So dress for success and use proper clothes. The third thing I want to point out is to communicate concisely and precisely. So if you start blabbering on about different things and don't use proper words and try to sort of take as much time to speak as possible, that's really not gonna get you far. In the workplace, people are typically quite busy, and people typically don't want to waste too much time in meetings, for example. So really working on your speech and working on using precise words and working on forming your statements to be concise, that really does a lot of good for you in the workplace. The fourth thing I want to talk about is figuring things out for yourself. So I see a lot of people who get assigned a task and then they ask, how do I do this? So, hey, I want you to make this Google ad for me. Can you please do it by 12 on Friday? Then somebody tells me that I don't know how to do that. Can you please help me? Before even trying to do the task. So I really want to emphasize, and one really good framework for figuring things out on your own is the 15-minute rule. And even this could be a 30-minute rule for you for the first 6 months that you do this. So the 15-minute or the 30-minute rule is used by a lot of tech companies, for example. I think Google uses the 15-minute rule, if I'm not mistaken. And the 15-minute rule is that when you stumble on a problem, you work on it and you can't solve it. And then the idea pops up to your head that you're gonna ask for help. When that idea pops up in your head, you don't immediately act on it. So first you take 15 minutes and you Google for a solution. You look to your previous problems that you've encountered and see if there are any parallels. And you try to work out the problem on your own. If you can't get it done in 15 minutes or 30 minutes, if you want to go the 30-minute route, which I recommend when you start, then you have to ask for help. So then you don't Google anymore, don't try to work on it, don't waste any more time, because you clearly need help. So then at that point, at the 30-minute point, just ask for help. So that's a really good rule that you can follow to make sure that you're active and proactive and that you try to figure things out for yourself and you don't waste managers or other people's time on obvious answers that you could have found in 5 minutes on Google. And you don't waste too much time working on a problem that you really can't solve. So that's a really good balance, and I really recommend you do the 30-minute rule for 6 months if you haven't done anything like this before. So the fifth thing is to use your age as an advantage. And what I mean by this is that you will encounter situations where people just point blank ask you, how old are you? And this comes with the presupposition that you typically don't first off say your age, which I wouldn't recommend, because that gives off the impression that your age is odd or your age is weird, and it really highlights it as when managers hear something like that, they immediately start thinking that, hey, can you do this because you're so young or whatever. So typically I don't want you to mention your age. It's not typical in a professional setting. But if somebody asks you point blank, how old are you? You of course have to speak the truth. So you don't want to lie in the workplace. So in these situations, it's tempting to say, I'm 20 and I'm good at this despite me being 20. And the despite part is the part I want you to get rid of. I really want you to embrace your age, because I really do believe that being young and having a young age is not an issue in the workplace. In fact, it might be a benefit, because typically young people have more elastic brains. They learn things quicker up until about 25 or 26, when elasticity in the brain, or plasticity in the brain, starts decreasing. So you have a more plastic brain and you can learn things more efficiently, effectively, and remember them longer. Secondly, young people are typically more on point with new trends, with new technologies, which makes young people generally really good picks for marketing or for software development, and things like that. So young people have a lot of advantages. So I want you to, instead of saying, despite my young age, I'm good at this, I want you to say, because of my young age, I'm good at this. And think about things that, reasons why being young makes you good at your job. So the 2 reasons mentioned above, you can use those, or you can come up with your own. But really embracing your age and using it as an advantage, I really want you to do that. For the 6th thing, I want you to under-promise and over-deliver. So typically in the workplace, you hear about people getting assigned a task and then promising that, hey, this will be really good, I'm really good at this task, I'll get it done, it'll be amazing. You hear people saying things like that, and then when the final result comes in, it's not that fascinating, it's not that amazing. And what typically people do, and at least for what was the sort of first instinct for me, was to over-deliver and, over-promise and under-deliver, which is not a really good combo. So what I want you to do is to under-promise and over-deliver, of course, to a reasonable extent. But for example, if your boss wants you to do a Facebook ad, if you're a marketer, then you might want to do the Facebook ad, but you might want to design it exceptionally well using a graphic design tool. Or you might want to search for inspiration of very effective ad types that other companies use and use that. Or you might want to give them 3 options, or going through to a reasonable extent, a level or 2 above the level that you're asked of. So you don't go to level 5 or 10 where you put in ridiculous effort without sort of knowing if it's worth it, but going a level or 2 above what you are asked of makes for a really good impression and really makes people trust you, and that may give out the impression that you really can do the work. And for the last item, I want to talk about making yourself indispensable. So when you've gone through all of those things, so you've started thinking yourself as a professional, you started using proper clothes, you started communicating concisely and clearly, you started figuring things out for yourself, you started using your age as an advantage, and you started under-promising and over-delivering. Using this combo of these 6 things really, at least for me, made me a really trustworthy and even indispensable young professional, or professional as we know them. So through doing the above mentioned things correctly and for long enough, you'll find that people start taking you more seriously, people start assigning you more responsibility, and people start generally treating you as what you are, which is a professional. And you have to embrace this as well, and you have to lean into it to make yourself indispensable, because that's really where you're gonna find long-term career success and where you're gonna be at a really comfortable position at a really early age. So these were some of my thoughts on how to thrive in the workplace as a professional, not as a young professional. If you have any thoughts or comments about this, please leave them down below. If you find this content valuable, I'd appreciate if you consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.